The past couple of weeks have been incredible. And, you know, this is one of those things that even with what Carla and Shayla said, you know, with the honor in taking care of children and family, the whole time that we're doing that, we should never lose focus. Because, see, when we start losing our focus, then everything starts to become distorted. And we don't, because, you know, when you've got bad vision, what do? You have to do something to correct it to bring everything, what? Back into focus, because, well, distance is off and things aren't adding up. You know, and Paul said, be transformed by the renewing of your minds in Romans 12:2. You know, and that's cool. And I stumbled on this today, actually, that Mark Casto had put out, and he had some really, really cool things about the brain. And it just fits so beautifully in where God kind of wants me to go. But we've heard it 100 times, but here it is, what you've never been told. The word transformed in the original Greek, metamorphos, the exact root of the word for metamorphosis. It doesn't mean a one-time change. It demands a brutal, ongoing process of becoming something fundamentally different through a sustained disruption. Paul wrote these words 2,000 years before science discovered neuroplasty, yet neuroplasty is exactly what he's describing. Your brain physically rewires itself based on what you repeatedly think, based on what you repeatedly focus on, based on what you rehearse. Neural pathways get used and forged into steel superhighways, pathways that are ignored, get aggressively pruned away. Your mind is not fixed. It is being violently reshaped every single day by what you feed it the most. And you know, we've said that in our meetings before, that what we behold is what we become, right? So, you know, there's things that we have been given, and I'm going to do an overview and then jump right into where God has put me. Because we're going to end up in Matthew 13. That's our core text. And we read and I'm going to start in Genesis because I want to create the foundation, and we started there before, and we know the story, but there again, we can know something but not grasp it. We can know something and not have a heart transformation. We can know an address and we can know a location, but not know who's at that address and who's at that location. And a lot of times we become really, really good at knowing the address and knowing the location, but we do not know what's behind the door. And see, that's what's happened is, like in Song of Solomon, I think it is 2:12, it says, the little foxes spoil the vineyard. And see, here's the thing about it. We've let little things creep in and spoil things. And see, even Jesus told the disciples, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees. He wasn't telling them to beware of the Pharisees. He's telling them to beware of the little things that they do. Because it's the little things that come into our life that, guess what, create the molehill, or the molehills that turn into the mountains that then we have to conquer and overcome and deal with. Right? You take care of the thing, you take care of the problems before they spread, before they grow. It's easier to pluck the tree up out of the ground when it's still a little sapling than it is to pay a couple of $1,000s to have it removed off your house when it falls in the rain. That's just the way it works. What's easier to deal with, a 100-year-old oak tree or an acorn? But see, here we go. And this is what's happened, is we've been given little things. And then all of this becomes something huge. And see, we've talked earlier that for yeast to take effect in dough, the conditions have to be right. It has to be warm. The environment has to be right. Well, guess what? When you take trash and you put it in the right environment, it will start to stink. That's just all there is to it. And see, this is what's happened within our Christian culture, is it's got all the trappings of being something great, but there's no movement. I mean, there's not. We're just treading water. We've lost our witness, and maybe even worse than that is we've actually damaged it. You know, because we've put education over just sitting with the Father. What do you think about this? You know, we want somebody else to spend the time with Him and then come back and give us a word. But intimacy requires closeness, proximity, contact. And like I said, there's just so much. I mean, I feel like a puppy in a plant full of tennis balls. I mean, like, God's just been dropping stuff left and right, and I mean, it's just like, and in Genesis, we read the word curse, and the picture of an arbitrary death sentence, but that completely misses the point. It wasn't an arbitrary punishment, it was a prophetic declaration. And I'm referring to Genesis 3:16. And to the woman He said, I will make your pains and your childbearing years very severe. Your labor pains, you'll have labor pains when you give birth. But this is what I want us to focus on right here. Your desire will be for you, for your husband, and he will rule over you. Now, I want you to look at this, and I want you to put this in your mind, because again, doing a quick overview, we've already had this class once, but quick overview. When we strip away the grace of a Christ-centered, or it would otherwise be known as a Christocentric, but a Christ-centered world, and leave people with nothing but an exhausting treadmill of legalism left and a legalistic right, then we inevitably enforce men and women into a state of survival and panic. Toxicity is not a natural byproduct of manhood or womanhood. It is a desperate defense mechanism born out of the anxiety of having to perform to a matter. And here's exactly how this toxicity feeds the fire. When a man is strapped between the legalistic left and the legalistic right, he's given two options. The right, the checklist, aggressive dominance. Religious and political right often tell men to be righteous, they must achieve cultural dominance, project an absolute unyielding power, show zero vulnerability, and this forces men to view weakness as an external threat. To protect this position on the treadmill, the man's defaults go right back into Genesis 3. He uses strength to dominate, suppress, and control, rather than sacrificially serving others. All right? And then you've got the left side of this, the insecure rebellion. Concurrently, the secular left tells men that their natural masculinity is inherently oppressive and systematically forcing them into a state of perpetual cultural guilt. And many men rebel by running straight into the dark corners of the internet and embracing Hyper-aggressive secular phrases like alpha male and gurus who teach them to weaponize their strength and to treat women as objects. And see, here's the other thing that we're seeing in this culture. Look at how it's fueled the toxic femininity. Similarly, women caught between these two legalistic systems, she is now forced to use a fallen, manipulative tactics, the rights checklist, mask of compliance. The moralistic right often reduces biblical womanhood to a rigid external checklist of total compliance, demanding women project an image of effort, domestic perfection, while offering zero space for a real struggle or doubt. Women are barren from showing weakness and having an authentic voice, and they resort to Genesis 3 tool set. Relational aggression, hidden gossip, and emotional manipulation. They control their environment and protect their reputations behind a mask. And then you've got the left on the other side. Meanwhile, the secular left tells women they are complete on their own, and that men are inherently dangerous oppressors, and that the only way to be vulnerable is to aggressively conquer every space, relying on their own power. This drives the modern uptick of a toxic, hyper-isolated feminism that views relationship as a battleground, demands absolute coddling with zero personal accountability, and weaponized perceived vulnerabilities, and destroys others. The cycle of devastation, because neither extremes offer the grace of Jesus, the right or the left. They lock men and women into a vicious reactionary cycle. The secular left blames the men. Men retreat into toxic masculinity. Women respond with toxic femininity. And the religious right demands harder performance. And you see what we're getting focused on in all of this? Performance. Everybody's trying to perform. And what's your brain suddenly getting rewired to do? Perform. I've got to meet this standard. I've got to meet this. I've got to look this way. I've got to act this way. I've got to dress this way. What am I focused on? What am I becoming? What I'm focused on. And you see how this becomes a mindset, and this becomes something that we wake up every morning and we get caught in this system. And then it's like, oh, well, wait a minute. Well, be transformed by the renewing of your minds. Well, your mind's not being renewed because guess what? You're putting trash in. Both sides are entirely driven and by fear of being exposed as not enough. What was the original lie in the garden? That you're missing one thing. It is the exact fulfillment of the Genesis 3 prophecy. It wasn't a curse. It was a prophetic declaration given by God that when you turned self-centered, you will destroy others, period. You've lost your center. And having lost their center, they're trapped into a legal system, so they turn on each other. God shows up in the garden telling men and women that they will seek to dominate one another. This was not a curse, but a promise that become fulfilled. Because guess what? They believed we're lacking one thing. Guess what? We wake up in the morning and look in the mirror and we're lacking what? One thing. We go to the store and guess what? We're lacking one thing. You see how this perpetuates and it goes just throughout, and it's just molehills turning into a mountain. We're not dealing with these things. You know, how many times have we got up and we're like, wait a minute, I need to, well, what does Jesus say about this? What does Jesus say about me? The prophecy became a curse because it trapped humanity into a perpetual state, forcing state forced of hunger, forcing men and women into two distinct broken patterns. Operation from a lack versus an operation from wholeness. Okay? You can operate from a sense of lack, or you can operate from a sense of wholeness. When you operate from a sense of lack, relationship tools with the opposite sex become predatory. A man looks at the woman and thinks, I need to dominate and control her, use her to feed my ego and prove my power. Woman looks at the man and thinks, I need to manipulate to control and outmaneuver him to guarantee my security and my protection. And both are trying to harvest identity from the other broken person. The gospel blueprint of wholeness. When we operate from the finished work of Jesus, you are already completely, perfectly made whole. Period. You're not lacking in anything, and you no longer look to the opposite sex to exploit or to conquer. You are freed to love, serve, and sacrifice for them without demanding them to fix your internal bankruptcy. And see, this is one of those things that, Carla and I were talking as we went on the trip, how we have come around full circle. And it's like, wait a minute, the things that we believed, the things that we would have told a married couple 10 years ago versus now. How we would want them to look at relationship then versus now. Roles within the marriage and what that looks like. It's no longer an aggression. It's no longer trying to prove or validate myself over her. There's not that there anymore, because guess what? There's been a mindset shift. And these things are not because we got better at loving each other. We got better at loving Jesus, and by default, we become better lovers of each other. When we learned how to worship, when we learned how to pray together, when we learned how to, in our quiet time, study and then feed kind of into each other, then everything else started to shift. And our marriage wasn't bad to start with going in. But I can tell you that it went, if it was on a scale of 1 to 10, it was sitting at a 10 and it went to a 20. But it's not because we've been going through marriage counseling and all this other stuff. It's solely because our perspectives have changed. I don't wake up in the morning going, how do I make her happy? I wake up in the morning going, okay, Christ, what are you and I doing first? And the overflow out of that includes her. The same. And see, this is the thing that I want us, that we've got to remember. Sin itself is not an action. We've branded it an action. All right? We've branded sin as an action, but it's actually a state of being void of divine identity, of complete wholeness. It's a state of being void of identity of our complete wholeness. And the bad actions are merely the fruit of an internal bankruptcy. See, when we don't know whose we are, we don't know how to act. When we don't know how much we're loved, we don't know. You see how all of this shifts? And these are things that the culture has, we'll go in and we'll hear the sermon about how you got to repent of your sins and say the prayer and do all these things and don't do these things again. And see, we want to focus on what? An action and a behavior. Jesus never focused on an action and a behavior. He focused on a mindset. You know what He did? He corrected a mindset because He knew when the mindset shifted, guess what's going to happen? The actions are going to change. He went to where? Zacchaeus' house to do what? Have a meal with him. Not course correct him, just have a meal. Hey, let's have dinner together. together. You know what? And out of that births something completely radical. Zacchaeus comes away changed. And does what? Ends poverty in the city for a generation. Because this man's not just a tax collector, he's like the head tax collector. And very good at extortion, because that's what they did. But he single-handedly ends poverty right there. Because what? He had an identity shift. And see, here's the thing about it. We've become so focused. Oh, well, I mean, I got branded today that I'm teaching hyper grace. You know what? Great. I'm almost where I need to be. I'm really, really close. Because if I can preach hyper grace and a hyper love so radical, there ain't no chance in hell that you're even going to look at something that is inferior, because you'll see something on my life that says, wait a minute, I see something that I want, and I don't want anything that is inferior. I'm just saying. See, we think we got to water this down. We'll give them a license to sin. No. Who gave Adam the license to sin? He wrote it himself. We write it ourselves. We write our own license to sin. Because we don't know whose we are. And guess what? When we don't understand that, we're going to miss the mark. And we're going to miss the mark. And we're going to keep missing the mark. And the lack of identity is just going to keep feeding bad actions and reactions. And guess what we leave behind us? A what? A wake of destruction. You know, as I was writing this and forming this and getting this download, it was the 4th, January the 4th. And if you knew my background and you knew my past and you knew how I grew up, then you knew what I went into, and then you know where I am now. Big difference. And I can tell you what doesn't work. I can tell you what has worked. I can tell you that on January the 5th of 22, God's voice radically shifted in my life. You see, that's the day that everything went dark. That's when everything broke free. And God, wow, just shows me things. Okay. I had the gun on the table. I've already got the plan. I know exactly what I'm fixing to do. And I also hear the enemy saying, well, you know, you do all these things for these other people and nobody's doing anything for you. Well, where's all? And God speaks to me. And in the heat of the moment, I'd never give it really any credit. And I was talking to Jesus the other day about this, because it come up on, it's a date that's saved in my calendar. And I asked him, so where were you at when this happened? And he said, I had my hand on your left shoulder the whole time. It's probably why I couldn't leave the chair, probably why I couldn't pick nothing up, because I'm left-handed. And you know, the thing is, out of this experience, he was trying to show me, and he did show me, and I did learn that, you know what? My relationship with him is based on intimacy. When everything goes wrong, it's based on intimacy. Me being able to hear shouldn't be required for me to have the house prophet speak a word. It shouldn't be required for me to call somebody or have somebody call to speak something into me. I should be able to hear directly from him. And you know what? There are times and there are seasons when, you know what? Yes, somebody's going to give a word of the Lord that is spot on. But you know what? As we grow and as we progress, the words that are spoken from others into our life will probably and will decrease, because guess what? We're not having to go to somebody else to get the groceries. We're getting them straight from the source.
True. Amen.
But see, a lot of times we just want to be lazy. We don't want the intimacy, we just want the stimulation. And guess what? Things going to get birthed. You going to take care of the baby? You know, and this is the thing, this is the core. You know, as we look at Genesis, you know, Adam settled for temporary fig leaves, but Christ restores us to our identity, wrapping us in His complete righteousness. See, when I start walking with Christ, what happens? You get clothed in righteousness. Robe in the ring, right? You know, that's And this is where I was at that day. And this one verse right here, and how we view it and how we answer it, I can tell you 100% how your walk with Christ is right now, off one verse, and how you respond. And this is Matthew 13:44. The kingdom of heaven is like a treasure that a man discovered hidden in the field. And in his excitement, he hid it again, sold everything that he had to get enough money to buy the field. Who's the treasure? And who's the man? Who's the man and who's the treasure? Because if you grew up in traditional Sunday morning, you were told that we got to give up everything because we found the treasure.
Come on now, drop some bombs.
We were told that we find Jesus, dig Him up, and we have to sell everything to get Him. I got one guy that's honest about it. And see, here's the thing. If you're the buyer, then this parable is a threat, not a promise, because you have to sell everything to do what? Buy God. Let me ask you a terrifying question. Have you actually done it? Have you given up every single selfish desire? Have you surrendered every single dollar, every single hour, and every single thought for perfection? If we are honest, none of us have. If you're the buyer, you are completely hopeless because your moral bank account is completely bankrupt. Think about it. Now, again, I went into this message saying that it is the little things that turn into huge mountains. And you see, when we're given a verse, and it sounds really, really good, because guess what? We can get everything going, and we can really hype it up and play it off, and oh yeah, that was a great word. And, oh yeah, I got to give up everything and kill myself and make this work. But see, where did I start this message at? In Genesis. Who's the world in Genesis? The world. Right? Who shows up first in Genesis? God. Right? And then what happens? He creates man out of nothing. There was nothing there. It was void, without form. Jesus, is all He's doing is going back to the very beginning at Genesis and going, guess what? I found a blob of nothing, and inside that blob, I found a treasure. And I knew that it was going to go horribly awry. So before the very foundations of the earth, I set everything in place to redeem it so that I could have you as my very own. A royal, priestly, holy nation, set apart, dedicated. We ain't got to do nothing. All we have to do is face the Father. That's it. That's it. But you see, this is one of those things. It's what we grow up reinforcing. And I grew up, I'm being real. Southern gospel music. I rode the buses, hung out with the singers, made money off of it, enjoyed it. And it's the worst theological train wreck that ever was. I don't even subscribe. I don't even want, I don't even want to go there. It is horrible. Because guess what? Every other song is about getting bailed out of here on a cosmic rescue mission and leaving Earth so it can burn. But that's not what Jesus tells us. Thy kingdom come where? Here. To earth as it is in heaven. That means there's not a bailout. That means there's a redemption. And you know what? Maybe I'm wrong in when I say that. And that's cool. Maybe we do get bailed out. Okay, cool. But let me play the devil's advocate. Let's just say by some wild miracle that maybe I'm on to something. And that I'm actually supposed to tend the garden. And that I'm supposed to make heaven, earth look like heaven wherever I go. And that's my end goal. Let's just say that's how I play it out. And let's just say that one day I stand before God and He goes, you know what? You did exactly what you were supposed to do. You were supposed to make heaven look like earth. You know what? That's great because we took a high road. All right, let's just say that we get bailed out of here. How do I get faulted in that? Because guess what? I just love people like Jesus. Either way, I'm in the right, but I'm not being lazy in who I love and how I love. But you see, it's the little things, and it's how we shift and what we focus on and what we feed and how we feed and what we do that makes all the difference in the world. And see, again, we go back to a Christocentric theology, a Christ-centered theology. And you know what the universities have done? They've shifted away from a Christocentric theology. They don't teach that nearly as much as they do business management. How to make the model work. How to counsel. How to do this and that and the other. How to bring crowds in. How to draw in a crowd. You know what? Even John Wesley said, you light me on fire, people will come and see. And you know what? It's not about drawing a crowd. You think about this. After Jesus fed the 5,000, they sought to make him king by force. And what did he do? Hid. He ducks out. Wait a minute. How does this work? Because he come to establish a kingdom. What does our Sunday morning experience look like? Well, just ask him into your heart.
Say these words.
Say these words. Repeat this prayer. Been there, done that, got the t-shirt, preached that, lived that. And guess what? It got me in a January the 5th situation where nothing worked. Because beloved, identity and what I was seeing and what I was experiencing versus what was there did not work, and it will not mix and it will not blend. And I'm telling you this, and Carla can attest to it. You can attest to it. There has been a shift in how I identify and what I do and how I operate. And I don't particularly like it a lot of the times. Because guess what? I respond in ways now that are not how I want to respond.
He gets in trouble on Facebook.
And here's the thing about it. The prodigal son left home with what? All of his inheritance. Where does he come back? Home. And you know what? Grace might look attractive and it might look like, hey, we can get away with whatever we want to do, and you might leave home. You'll be back. You know where home is and you know where the Father is. Let them. Not our battle. Not our fight. All we're to do is to love. Period. Point the way. Show the way. I don't have to course correct you. Holy Spirit's going to do that. All I got to do is be light. And you know what? When you turn and you want to face the Father and you don't know which way to look, let's go together. It's not my job to change diapers. It's my job to walk to the Father every day. And if you want to walk with me, then let's walk together. And if you don't, then you can stay where you're at. But I'm getting up today and I'm going to face the Father. I'm walking one step closer to the Father. I'm moving to the Father. And guess what? That's the plan of salvation. Because Jesus said, I come that you have life and that you may have an abundant life. Where's that abundant life kick in? It kicks in the very moment you go, you know what? I'm going home.
Yo, come on, let's
Kicks in the very moment I go, I'm out. Let's go home. Because I can tell you this, there's another son that never left the house and had no idea who his father is, had no idea that there's a party waiting for him, and never claimed it. One son stayed and was miserable and in hell. The other son left, had a good time, wound up miserable in hell. One son come back, discovered that there's a loving Father that threw a party. And you know what Paul said? He said it's the grace of God that what? Brings men to metanoia, a changing of the mind. Not that I feel sorry for what I did, but you know what? He's entirely too good for me not to be sorry for what I did, because it was His love that even when I smelled like and acted like and anything that was not of God, He still embraced me, because guess what? I'm His treasure.
Good.
But you see, when the American church started putting this bull on us about us having to give all of this up, do you see how it reinforced the Genesis 3 narrative? Do you see how this come out of the church, bled through the world, and has corrupted even more than what we are? We have nobody to blame but ourselves for what we're seeing on the right and on the left. We made it toxic. Because guess what? Nobody wanted to spend time with the Father. Me included. And when we start sitting with Him, it doesn't matter what Joe Smo, ordained bishop, deacon, pastor, whatever says anymore. Because Jesus is perfect theology 100% of the time. And John said it best, no man has seen the Father. And that was Jesus' words to the Pharisees. And they're sitting there going, wait a minute, we've got a whole Torah full of people that have seen God and have spoken to God. And Jesus goes, no. You've heard it said by men of old. You've heard it said. No, you've come in, corrupted my identity, corrupted my likeness, and I've had to go in and correct this. I've showed up at this point, this time, to clean my temple, to clean this house, and to start trying to set things in order to show you that I am not what the Old Testament has made me out to be. You've got Job. You've got Noah, Moses, all of these men that are trying to rectify and figure out who God is. And guess what? They can't do it because they don't have a Jesus lens to look through. You know what? And the book of Job is not the answer to the question when you go through hell. The book of Job is a great representation of a man who actually has the wherewithal to have a conversation with God. Did he get it right? No. But what did he do? He had a conversation. That's a lot more than most of us are willing to do. And he sits and listens, and we're sure not ready to sit and listen. If we don't get it in 5 minutes, we out. I mean, my gosh, we'll leave the Burger King drive-thru if they take too long. But see, it's what we focus on. Do we want to see generations change, or do we just want out of here? Do we want to see lives changed, or do we just want out of here? Because guess what? I don't want out of here anymore. I want to walk with my friends. I want to see them set free. I want to see them healed. I want to see them come into fullness. I want to see them wrecked in the floor in worship. Because guess what? It's what we're supposed to do. And you know, the June the 5th experience that I walked through, I wouldn't wish on anybody. But you know something? Coming out of that, I don't go somewhere looking for a word anymore. Because I know He's faithful to supply exactly what I need when I need it the most. I can now strengthen myself in the Lord. And you know what? If there's a word that comes along the way, that's just icing on the cake. But you can't take the cake away from me. And you know what? He gives us exactly what we need when we need it. He gives us what we can handle right then and right there, what we will receive. It's open-handed. You know, there's so much. And as I sit there, I've been stewing on this all week. This one verse, all week. Actually, for about 2-3 weeks now. see, it's like I said, it's these little things that we read through it, and I haven't done it in this one, and I don't think it's done in the Bible that I had before this one, but in my big Bible that I really, really write in, I've got me as the treasure. I'm the treasure. You're the treasure. Because again, in the picture of Christ, He did it all. Left heaven, sold everything, bought the field, paid the price, did the redemption, come back, death, burial, what? Resurrection, death, burial, what? Resurrection, all in one parable. And you know what? It may seem dark, even in our walk, but there's things that are coming to life. There's things that are shifting. The extreme right claims to be about truth and biblical orthodoxy, but they've weaponized the law to create religious anxiety. The system, this is the classic whitewashed tomb performance trap. They take the beautiful, the impossible standard of God, and turn them into a manageable checklist of behaviors, political alignment, and religious routines. The hell message, the message from the pulpit is raw and intimidation. If you quit, if your quiet time isn't perfect, if your kids aren't perfect, if your life doesn't look like our checklist, or you have a bad spiritual week, off to hell you go because you didn't work hard enough. Think about it. If I didn't pray hard enough, if I didn't read my Bible enough, if I had a bad week, if the tires blow out on the truck, tractor burns to the ground, the hay baler catches on fire, and all my cows die, guess what? That's God's judgment on me. That's how we grew up. Well, I mean, could it have been that there was bad food that we give the cows and the rats ate the wiring harness off of the hay or off of the tractor, and well, I hadn't changed the tires and they're on slicks? And I kind of set myself up for all of this? The same root, the same fear, same pride, same human effort. Both extremes hate the gospel because the gospel takes the checkbook and the checklist out of human hands. Both extremes hate the gospel because the gospel takes the checkbook and the checklist out of human hands. And see, that's where religion has a problem. Because they want to be able to go, oh, you got this. You got this, you got this. Well, you go over here and say your prayer and go over here and get baptized, go over here and get this. Oh, yeah, see, you collected all 5 gold stars. Guess what? You got your ticket punched. You're ready to go. And we drop people off at the curb. And they spend the next 20 years going, well, I got my gold card. And they live like hell. I lived like hell. And I made everybody else's life around me hell. And when it didn't work, guess what? I tried harder. Did more things, jumped through more hoops. And when that didn't work, I said, the hell with it all. I'll go the other direction because at least they're having fun. And they're not starving themselves to death. They're not falling asleep reading a Bible at 3 a.m. before they go to work, and they're falling asleep at night reading it because, well, maybe that's where And well, guess what? The other side winds up. But then relationship kicks in. And relationships like, hey, I done checked all these boxes. Let's go for a walk. Let's me and you walk this out. You don't have to have it together. You don't have to get it right. You don't have to say the prayer. You don't have to know the verses. You don't have to know what version. You don't have to know what service to show up at. You don't have to know how to dress. You don't have to know all this stuff. All you have to know is I'm right here, right now, with you. Right here, right now, with you. Let's walk. Let's walk. Let's walk. And see, that's our invitation. That's our invitation. That's what we've been invited into, is a walk. And guess what? That's radical loving grace. Because guess what? He's going to meet me exactly where I am in the exact mess that I'm in, and He loves me too much to leave me in that hellhole that I was in. You know what? I have the option to stay there. He'll show up. And I have the option to come out of it or to stay and waller in it. I have that option because He did give us free will. And there's a lot of people that's just going to be happy to waller in it. If they don't want to walk, I can't make them. I'm still going to go for my walk. So, you know, I'm thankful for the house and what we have here in this group, in this meeting. I hate to call it church or anything like that because it's not. It's family, it's home, it's comfortable, it's challenging. I mean, it is. But, you know, at the end of the day, I know we have each other's back and that we can be real and we can be honest. And that's not fake, that's real. That's love. That's the heart of the Father. That's walking this out, that when one of us stumbles, you know what? We're all ready to step back and help. You know what? When one of us rejoices, we're all going to rejoice. Because guess what? We're family. And I'm excited for where we're headed. I got so much now. But I want to take the burden off of you 100%. You don't have to witness anymore. You don't get them to say the prayer. You just love them. You just show up and you love them. You don't have to evangelize or hand out tracts. None of that. You show up wherever Christ sends you, in whatever situation that looks like, and however dark it is, they cannot take your light. You just love them. That's how we evangelize. That's how we do this. We just show up and we love them. Father, thank you for a radical love, hyper grace. Father, that gives us complete metanoia. That our thoughts are no longer our own, but they're yours. And that we become so centered on you that our thoughts and our actions reflect your glory. Father, that when we read something that we ask, where's Christ in this? Because you're ready to show us. Father, thank you for all that you've done and all that you've blessed us with. Amen.